Okay. Erev Tov, everyone. I just want to remind everybody we have a very busy time coming up over the next month or so in the shul. Just if you were here this morning, you probably heard, but the Wednesday learning program. So the bad news is that over the next 2 weeks, Rabbi Manning will not be here. He's away. But hopefully good news is that I will be giving the share in his place. So stay tuned for that. There'll be Wednesday mornings the next 2 weeks. The Wednesday following that, I don't think it's been publicized yet, but there's going to be a special Yom Iyun or morning about Chanukah with some special guest speakers as well. And I'll be speaking, and Rabbi Wein will be speaking. So stay tuned for that. We also have a special Malava Malka on Motzei Shabbat of Chanukah with Rav Doron Perez. So lots of things to look forward to.
Where are you seeing?
What? Well, you have to come and see. We're going to keep it on the theme of contemporary halachic issues, but it will be interesting. I thought we might talk about demonstrations in halakha. We'll see. But okay. So yes. What are the halachot of demonstrations? Hafganot? No. You definitely can't argue the rabbi. Okay. In any event, last night we started talking about Black Friday in halakha. Very, very interesting. And just anecdotally, I just mentioned, because we mentioned last night, and this whole thing, the first issue, which is really a non-issue, but it's an issue which the poskim discuss and say maybe because this whole concept of Black Friday starts because it's the beginning of the festive shopping season, right? Everybody was waiting till after Thanksgiving to then go into the next festive season, and if by participating in this these sales and this process, are we sort of lending credence to Avodah Zarah, etc.? Like I say, practically speaking, nowadays we don't, because we say it's just a cultural thing, it's not a religious thing, there's no significance like that. But I mentioned how all of this began in the year back in the 1930s. There was a controversy about when to have Thanksgiving. And Franklin D. Roosevelt, the president, said maybe make it a week later, a week earlier, etc. You know, it's one of the great miracles of Jewish history that we have one calendar, that all Jews around the world keep the same calendar. It's incredible when you think about it. We take it for granted, but there have been many, many times throughout our history when there was a threat of a split, of a rift in the calendar. In certain times it happened, right? The famous, again, I know we have Yom Tov Sheni Shel Galiot, Beseder, but we all have the same dates. So there's the Mishnah and the Gemara in Masechet Rosh Hashanah that tells the story of Rabban Gamliel and Rabbi Yeshua, which I alluded to last night, and that's a well-known story. There was also, about 1,000 years ago, there was a very great controversy between Rav Sadia Gaon, right, before he was a street name, Rav Sadia Gaon and Ben Meir, a Chacham in Eretz Yisrael, who was named Ben Meir, and they had a running machloket for about 2 years as to how to fix the calendar. We have letters that they found in the Cairo Geniza attesting to this. And for about 2 years, there was a period whereby the Jews of Bavel and the Jews of Eretz Yisrael fixed the dates differently. And fixed it, not just Yom Tov Sheni Shel Galiot. There were two different calendars, right? And we know that in the secular world, there have been times as well, in the non-Jewish world, where the calendar is split off. So it's quite a remarkable thing when you think about how we somehow were able to keep it all together, and we still have one calendar to this day. But in any event, so going back, talking about just this idea of Black Friday. So I saw a tshuva in B'Mara Bazak, which again relates to the same issue we were talking about yesterday, which is maybe a little bit more problematic. I'll read to you the question. This was in Spain. This question was asked about 20 years ago, and the question was asked by a Jewish shopkeeper. He says, "Be'amim me'eleh shel sof hashana ezrachit kshanotrim b'Sfarad chogegim et hachagim shelahem." Right, it's the end of the year, and this is the time when the non-Jewish world celebrates their festivals. Yesh b'Sfarad chag b'shisha b'Yanuar. On the 6th of January, there is a festival in Spain which is called Hamelachim HaKosmim. Right?
Storm the Congress.
Oh, right. So, yeah. 6th of January, right? So the Magic Kings or something like that. Okay, this has got to do with the Christian festival. How do you celebrate the Chag? You buy toys for the children. והילדים כותבים מכתבים לאותם המלאכים לבקש מהם המתנות. Okay, sounds a little bit like Santa Claus. This is the Spanish version, where the children write letters to these kings or whoever it is to ask them to give them their gifts, their toys. So the question that's asked is, יכול לעשות מבצע של קבלת מכתבים. All the shops, what do they do? The only way for the shop to make a parnasa in this time of year is that they are going to let the kids send in the letters and then they'll give out the toys, whatever. You can, but the question is that the shop owner is Jewish and he wants to know, can he have these letters, have the kids send in these letters and he can sell them the toys? Right? All the kids are non-Jewish. ומה יאפשר לו למכור כמות של צעצועים הרבה יותר גדולה מאשר אם לא יערך מבצע כזה. If he doesn't take part in this festival with the writing the letters, whatever, no one's going to come to his shop. They're all going to go to the other shop where they can write the letters. Okay. So the question is, can he participate in this, or is this considered hana'ah, from enjoyment from avodah zarah? Is this considered right b'chukotehem lo telechu? The issues that we mentioned yesterday. I bring this shuvah because this is obviously much more muvhak. This is much more. There's a much clearer connection to the festival than Black Friday, Blue November, whatever it is. So the answer that he was given over here is that it would actually be permitted. It says 3 reasons why. Reason number 1 is that they say asur limkor davar mitkayem la'akum lifnei dahem. As we mentioned yesterday, this whole problem of doing commerce with idolaters, right, on the day of their chag, which doesn't really apply today because nobody's really going to go and worship. You're going to sell them something. They're not going to go and serve it to their gods or anything like that. It's just commercial. Number 2, we have a halakha that you cannot sell to a non-Jew any product or any item which is miyuchad la'avodah zarah, which is going to be used for avodah zarah, but that's clearly not the case over here as well. This is just toys. It's not anything like that. And number 3, they say maybe there's a question here of Chilul Hashem shenireh ke'ilu hayehudi notel chelek u'mishtatef ba'achanot lechagim. If it appears that he's participating, in the chag, so then maybe that's a question. I found it very strange when we were on shlichot. You're probably all used to this, but we were on shlichot, and you walk into the kosher butcher on the week of the 25th of December, and they're selling turkeys, which they don't sell the entire year, in the kosher butcher all of a sudden. So that's a strange thing. But he says if it looks like you're participating in their chag, maybe that's an issue. אבל נראה שמבצע צנוע של קבלת מכתבים עם רשימת מתנות לא יתפרש כהשתתפות בשמחת החג, אלא כדרך להתפרנס. But everybody knows this is not, he doesn't really want to take part in the festival. This is just a way of getting parnasa, and therefore they say that tshuva ends off. It says obviously you need to take into account the local context and the local circumstances and ask the local Orthodox rabbi in terms of what you should do and how it would be perceived. But that was one issue that we spoke about yesterday. So we saw, when it comes to Black Friday nowadays, certainly we're not concerned that it looks like you're participating in avodah zarah or anything like that. Certainly not in Israel. That was issue number 1. Issue number 2 that we mentioned was the idea of if the close proximity to Shabbat, and if you're going to order things and it's going to be delivered specifically on Shabbat, that may be an issue. But again, if you're just physically going into the shop and buying, that wouldn't be anything to worry about. We spoke about also the potential question of Yored lo manut chavero, that you're taking away parnasa. If all the parnasa now is on the internet and you're taking away from the shops, and I quoted the Shuvav Rabbi Shavais, where he says that anything which is the normal way of development of technology of the economy, that doesn't fall into the sugya, and that's not a problem as well. But there is one actual real issue with all of this, which is maybe the least talked about, but maybe the most important over here. And maybe to understand, let me read to you a biur halacha. Those who are in the Gemara Shiur, Masechet Beitzah, will know this. We discussed this when we saw the Gemara in Beitzah says that a person's expenses or a person's income is determined right on Rosh Hashanah. Right? Mezonotav shel adam ksuvin lo min Rosh Hashanah ad Rosh Hashanah, from one Rosh Hashanah to the next. There's actually 2 girsaot in the Gemara. One girsa says that it's from Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah, and one girsa says that it's from Rosh Hashanah to Yom Kippur. Right? And that would be an afkamina, depending on how we understand that, what the judgment is on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. If the Gemara says, if we take the version that says a person's income is fixed from Rosh Hashanah until Yom Kippur, it means the judgment begins on Rosh Hashanah, the judgment closes on Yom Kippur, but that is how much money you'll have for the entire forthcoming year. If we say that it's from Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah, it just means how much money you'll have from this Rosh Hashanah until next Rosh Hashanah. Now that's how much money will come in. That is what's predetermined. What is not predetermined is how much money is going out. And the poskim say that a person needs to know because a person can overspend. So it says in the Gemara that there's certain things which, if you spend money on them, that's not taken off the account. That you'll be reimbursed for, so to speak. There's a heavenly expense account. Any money that you spend on Shabbat and on Yom Tov and on Chinuch, right? Those things that you get reimbursed for, so to speak. So it says at the end of Ilchot Yom Tov, the Shulchan Aruch says that Al Yitzamtzem Botzot Yom Tov. The person should not be stingy when it comes to what you spend for Yom Tov. You should spend nicely, obviously within one's means. It doesn't mean that you can, go and take out all sorts of loans and get into all sorts of debts because, it's for Yom Tov. But no, still within reason. But the point is, you can spend a little bit more. You can spend a little bit in order to for that mitzvah. So the Biur Halacha says the following. He says that the Shulchan Aruch says, Al Yitzamtzem Botzot Yom Tov. Don't be stingy. How do you say don't minimize? Okay, thank you. Don't minimize your Yom Tov expenses. Aval, what do you learn from that? Miklal en ata shomei alav, or miklal alav ata shomei en. Aval b'shal yamim tzarich kol adam letzamtzem botzotav. Actually, the Torah says this. So for Yom Tov, you don't have to minimize your expenses, but other days you do. You have to think about how much money you're spending and not spend it unnecessarily, not waste it. That you have a responsibility. He says, "Makoro me'adita b'gmar mezonotav shel adam ktuvim lo merosh hashana, etc." Uperesh Rashi lizaher mnasot yitzia meruba. One has to be careful not to spend too much money. Shelo yosifu lo ela ma shepasku lo, because it won't be added. It was determined on Rosh Hashanah how much you have. Now listen to what the Chafetz Chaim says. He says, "Zeu tochacha meruba al zmanenu." Okay, this is over 100 years ago. So if it was true in the days of the Chafetz Chaim, how much more true is it today? But he says this is a great rebuke for our days. Shebavonatenu arbim, harbe anashim ofrim al zeh. Many people transgress this. He says they get this wrong. V'lo yasimu lev ech litnaeg b'hotzaot beitam lalchik dvarim hamutarim. They aren't careful with their budget. They aren't careful with their expenses. They buy all sorts of luxuries, spend all sorts of money on things which they can't afford or that they don't have. This is called great distraction. He says sometimes it can lead people to stealing and to gambling and all sorts of things. And he says, why does this happen? Again, this is the Biur Halacha. This is not a Sefer Musar. This is a Sefer Halacha. There are many things which cause this bad behavior. The greatest reason is because of people. People don't plan ahead. People don't think about the future. He says, great is the person who will strengthen his heart and who will not give in to all sorts of temptations to buy things and to pay for things which they can't afford, which are above which are beyond their means. Okay, so that's what the Biur Halacha says. So what do you think the Biur Halacha would say about Black Friday? Right? So I think the point is, and Rav Rimon has a nice article, and he says that the real issue here, and the thing that we should be discussing is the consumer culture. He says when you have consumer culture, which is where what stands behind it is, by definition, motarot. It's all about luxuries. It's all about wanting what I don't have. It's all about wanting what I can't have. Right? Why do you want it? You want it because you can't have it. Because it's beyond your means. That's why people want it. So he says like this. Rav Rimon says, bottom line, practically speaking, he says we can divide people into, when it comes to Black Friday, we can divide them into two categories. Okay, there's category number one. That's the people that, I need something. I need a new clothes, new furniture, new whatever it is. I'm going to wait till, Black Friday or Blue November or whatever it is. And then I'm going to go and I'm going to look for the discounts and I'm going to find the cheapest one and I'm going to go and I'm going to buy it. That's Beseder Gamur. That's Mevorach. That's what you should do. But what about the people who go and they don't actually need anything. They don't actually want anything, but they go looking for something to buy. He said, that's a problem. Not because it's stuff it doesn't, what? Good for the mitzvah of buying. So that's, aside from the fact that what else could you be doing with the time? And you could be investing in chesed, and you could be learning Torah. I'm not getting into any of that. But that is, so I'll just read you the bottom line. He says like this. He says, Black Friday. There are two types of people who buy on Black Friday. So the people who buy things which you needed to buy anyway, you already wanted to buy. All right, my kids need a new coat. Okay, so we'll wait until then. We'll buy them a coat. It will be cheaper. You wait for the time when the prices are cheaper. That makes sense. Yesh b'af to'elet, and there's a great benefit to it. And then he says, mentioned this as well yesterday, you have to check the prices actually are cheaper, right? They're not just right, achizat einayim. Ulam, yesh lam kelam mechapsim ma liknot. There are those who don't need anything. You're looking for something to buy. It says mishotatim ba'atalim, right? Going, looking at all the websites, mevazvazim et kaspam, right? Wasting all your money. The mechapsim mutarot lekniya, and looking for luxuries to buy. Okay, difficult to say that that's asur, but he says that's not fitting, and that's not the thing. One more halachic issue which I thought of in terms of all of this is that when you buy a new object, so the question about, which for some reason this is not so common nowadays, we actually spoke about it on Shavuot, is what bracha should you say? Right? If you're buying a new object, and again, you're buying something small, something you could buy every day, so then maybe not. But if you make a large purchase, person buys a new car, person buys a new piece of furniture, person buys a new garment, a new suit, something which you don't go and buy every day. So there are halachot. It's bracha of shechiyanu. If it's just you who's going to get benefit from it, it's bracha b'tov v'ameitiv. If somebody else is going to get benefit from it, and that's if you're making a large purchase and it's something which makes you happy. It's not for the fact that it makes you upset because your bank balance goes down, but it makes you happy with the purchase. So then one should think about the note to say those brachot, because that's the appropriate way to thank Hashem as well.